We will. Sure, if you want to. I mean, we could grade it Monday if you want. I have no, yeah, I'm not worried about that. It doesn't matter. So, so today's the 27th. I think I'm recording and I think I'm screen sharing. Make sure. Yeah. Okay. So we are still completing the square, but the difference today is that you will need fractions to solve these. So you guys need to quit yapping now. It's obviously, hey, come on, we started like 40 seconds ago. Zip it up. So we're going to need fractions to solve today's problems. And so I guess before we actually start, I want to make sure you're comfortable, familiar with the process of how to add whole numbers and fractions together. Because, not everyone has the same background and comfort level with fractions. And so throughout today's entire, if you're going to start on the new worksheet today, which hopefully you are, then every problem you're going to have to add a number that's whole or like an integer with a number that's a fraction. So say I had like -10 and I was going to add to it like 25/4. This would be nice if we just take a couple minutes and talk about this so that we don't have to talk about it like literally every problem that we do. So that you can't just put them together, right? So what's the trick? You turn the one that's not a fraction into a fraction. So I could start by at least taking -10 and making it -10/1, but that still doesn't finish what I need. What else is wrong? You got to have the same denominator when you add fractions together. So what do I want to change -10/1 into? -40/4. Good. So then when I add those together, now that the bottoms are the same, I just simply combine the tops. And what's -40 plus 25? Okay, yeah, that was not the part of the lesson that I thought was going to take a while. Thank you for bailing us out there. That's -15/4. Good. So recall that you're just adding the tops. -40. Here, I'll draw a little yellow caterpillar thing around it. -40 plus 25 is -15, and that's that. Everybody okay with that process? You'll have to do that every single time. This worksheet today only has 8 problems, but they all will involve fractions. I specifically asked the computer to require fractions on every one. What's up, dude? Because we had the number -10. So that's how he started. And then we turned him into a fraction of -10/1. And then we multiplied the top and the bottom both by 4, turning it into -40/1 times 4. No, and if you don't ask, then you'll never know. Do you understand it now? That's how the system's supposed to work. So thank you for asking. You don't have to do, seriously, zip it. You don't have to do all the steps. As you know, you could have just taken, the trick I always use is I take the whole number and I just ask myself, what do I want your bottom to be? And I know I want it to be 4, so I always bypass this step. A lot of you probably do too. So if you know you want the bottom to be 4, then just multiply the whole number part by 4 and then stick it over what you want, right? So let's try practicing without the middle step. But if I have to, I'll go back and show it. It's okay. So let's say we had like 13 plus 144/4. I'm going to bypass and just say, okay, that number 13, you're on my radar. I don't like you because you're not what I want you to be. You're not in the right form. So what do we want 13's bottom to be? We want it to be 4. And I keep picking 4, and you'll see why when we start the lesson here, because it'll be 4 every time today. So I take the 13 and I multiply it by 4. What's 13 times 4? So I simply convert it into 52/4. I cut out the middle step where I made it 13/1. And then I can now just add it with the other guy. And 52 fourths plus 144 fourths makes 196 fourths. Everybody comfortable with that? Oh yeah, in this case, it would actually become, what, 49, did you say? Right. Which is odd. I didn't mean for that to happen. That was
my question. Yeah.
not in this case, because that's honestly that's not gonna happen. I don't. But yes, if it were to happen like this, then but honestly, there's a step before that. If you have that question in the middle of what we're doing, let me know. How's that sound? Because this isn't what we're doing. This is just a little baby step in the process, for the record. Good. All right, let's look at what this looks like then. I don't think you're going to dislike this at all. I hope. I should knock on wood when I say stuff like that. So this is the type of problem that we're going to use completing the square. But if you've been working hard, you understand now why this lesson exists, because the algorithm is going to go a little wonky here. You can, but I know what you mean. Like, you can't evenly cut 5. Every problem I've given you, you're welcome to look. Every single one on the worksheet and on Delta, the middle number, the B, has been even. Then when you divide it by 2, you get a whole number. So let's begin the algorithm by first kicking the 4 to the other side. That doesn't change. The process doesn't change. We just have more annoying numbers to work with. Now, I'm going to be pretty hard on you about this. I do not, when I ask you these questions, want you to give me decimals, and I'm just going to harp on you about that. You should be used to that with me by now. So what is half of 5? And I don't want mixed numbers either. I want just very literally 5 over 2. And 2.5 is going to be really hard for us. You'll see when we go to do the work. If we choose to just leave it as an over 2, the math will be, I think, simple. I believe that. We do. So the algorithm has not changed. So I'm going to show a little bit of work over here off to the side. I asked you what's half of 5. And after some back and forth, I think we came to an agreement that it's 5 over 2, right? It's what you are. You're 5 over 2. And now, Gavin, yes, I'm still going to follow the same process. Half of the middle was 5 over 2. What's 5 over 2 squared? 25. And that's why I picked 4 in my 2 examples, because it's going to keep happening. When you take half of an odd number, it's always over 2, and 2 squared is always 4. So every time we work today with these, the bottom is going to be 4, unless things have gone catastrophically wrong. I don't really see how they could yet. So my magic number is 25 fourths. And so I'm going to add 25 fourths to both sides. And it's at this point where you go, oh, I see why we did those, because that right side is always going to be, the holdup is always going to be, uh-oh, I got to do a whole number plus a fraction. And so let's flex on this. Let's do a couple things. Number one, and I've never asked you to do this before, but if you've been paying attention, you know that this is actually stupid easy. Let's factor the left side. What is it? Yes. It's always been this way. And really, this is the moment where you see how important it is that you don't even have to know how to factor. You have to remember that about a minute and a half ago, I asked you a question. I'm going to circle this in yellow. I asked you, what's half of 5? And we came to an agreement that the answer is 5 over 2, right? So that will go right there. I've never asked you to factor anything with fractions before, but if you understand that you don't even need to know how to factor, it's easy. Now, the right side, we got to do that basic math that we talked about. What are we going to turn the whole number, the white 4 into? 16 over 4. We're going to take it and say, since we want the bottom of it to be 4, then we're going to take the number as it exists, 4, and we're going to multiply it by what we want its bottom to be, 4, and we're going to turn it into 16 over 4. It still equals 4, but it's in the form that we need it to be. And what's 16 plus 25? So the right side says 41 fourths. Still good? After this, now we're going to do what we always do, and that is take the square root of both sides. The square root of this white and yellow side is just, of course, x plus 5 halves. And I always put positive negative before I even do anything else. Do you guys know how to take the square root of a fraction? That's all you do is you square root the top and you square root the bottom. Don't rely too heavily on your calculator, okay? I appreciate that that machine is really awesome, but don't rely on it too much. You got to know what's going on behind the scenes there. So we square rooted 41, which I'm just going to leave alone. And then I square rooted 4 and thought, oh, you're just 2. And then what's the last step always? Move the 5 halves. We can't have him there. So we got to say x equals negative 5 halves because I moved it, followed the little red arrow, it went and put it right there. Bam. Made it negative, right? Switch the sign. And then I'm going to put plus or minus root 41 over 2. And then I'm going to write something next to it like boom, put a box around it, maybe stand up, do a little dance, and head on to the next problem. If you wanted to, you could put these fractions together. Some teachers, not me, not this guy, but some teachers would like you, just for your future reference, since I won't be your last math teacher, some teachers would like you to identify, hey, look, you see how the bottoms are both 2? Neat. So we can take the tops and put them together. Again, I'm not this guy, so you don't have to do this, but Mrs. Eklund might want you to. That's her business. And so her answer that she might want would be like negative 5 plus or minus root 41, just all over 2. You know how that's fraction. That's how fractions work, right? I'm fine if you leave it the way it is in the big white box. Okay, let's try again. It's a little awkward, I know. The fractions can kind of be a little bit intimidating. What do we do first? Move the 9, right? And leave that nice awkward void. Don't forget to change the 9 to a negative 9. I think that if you'd like a pro tip for the day, you're like, gosh, I'd sure like it when Mr. Ahern gives me pro tips. Bless you. That wasn't my pro tip. That was just blessing a sneeze. Here comes my pro tip. When you ask yourself the question, what's half the middle? You should write it down. I'm too far along. I'm too close to retirement to just make young people do stuff because I want to control you. I'm telling you straight up that you should write it down. It will help. So what is half of negative 13?
13.
It is negative 13 halves. And I'm not worried about what it is when I square it. I'm telling you straight up, as a guy who cares about you, that you should write that down, including the sign. Half of negative 13 is negative 13 over 2. Take it or leave it. Pro tip of the day. Now I'm going to square it. And when I square it, I'm going to get what?
1.
And I've switched to my red pen now because that's going to be the number that I add to both sides. Now, in case you're not clear on why I was so stern about writing the blue part down, it's because of what we're about to have to do. You'll never, ever get stuck on this step right here if you write it down. Because I know what's going in my parentheses is M, and I know what to put right after it. I don't even have to know anything about anything. What's going right after the M? Minus 13 halves jackpot. And I get that because I'm like, sweet. I wrote it down, and that's where it goes. Jackpot. Now on the right side, again, here comes that annoying math that we talked about. What am I going to turn that negative 9? I'm pointing at it with a yellow arrow. What am I going to turn it into? Good. Negative 30, negative 36 over 4. And now I have to add those together. How many fourths will I get? Good job. 133 over 4. Do you understand and see that the 4 is inevitable, right? Because every time we're going to have a 2 on the bottom, and every time we're going to square a 2, it's always going to be a 4. Let's square root both sides. On the left side, we get M minus 13 over 2. And on the right side, without even hesitating, we put positive negative. What's the top going to be? Root 133. And bottom is regular 2. Last step.
Move the next
Yeah, and Sadie, what are we gonna do when we move that minus 13 halves to the other side? We're gonna switch that sign, right? So we're gonna get positive 13 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 133 over 2. And again, put a box around it, pat yourself on the back, take a sip of that water from your hydro flask and do a little happy dance. And one more and we'll go faster. Faster even than last time. So r squared equals 7r minus 21. What do we do first? I noticed you didn't say move the 21. Good for you guys. So we want r squared minus 7r awkward void equals a still negative 21. What do we do after this? What is negative 7? You guys really got to work on those negatives. What is negative 7 divided by 2? Negative 7/2. And I'm writing it down and follow my own advice. What kind of jerk would I be if I didn't follow my own advice? And I'm going to square that bad boy. What do I get? Beautiful. 49 over 4 is my guy. So I'm going to add 49/4 on the left. I'm going to add 49/4 on the right. And this example exists for a reason that you will soon understand. On the left, look at this and go, man, I don't know, factoring, woof. Remember, you don't have to know how to factor. What goes right after the R? Negative 7/2. So I just fill it in with minus 7/2. Jackpot. You got a question?
Are we gonna be able to put the middle number over to every line?
What's stopping you from that? I don't know that I understand your question, and I didn't mean to come back with another question, but yes, by definition, you're dividing the middle number by 2, right?
Yeah, but so we can just slap the middle number over, and then that's what we can have.
It's always going to work. And the reason it's always going to work is because that's what dividing by 2 means, is to, as you put it, slap a number over 2. Yeah. Now, if it's an even number, you don't have to slap it over 2. You just divide it, right? But yeah, nothing's stopping you. If it's 11, put 11 over 2. If it's minus 15, put minus 15 over 2. Every time. Good? All right. Right side, I got to do some pesky math. Darn pesky math. What am I going to change negative 21 into? Good job. Negative 84 over 4. And the trick is just multiply it by 4. And then, as Brady says, I like that word, slap it over 4, right? You got it. Now you know why this problem exists, because what's negative 84 plus 49? Oh. You got to do the I, right? This ain't our first rodeo. You're not scared. So now we are going to root both sides. And on the left, we get r minus 7/2 equals, without thinking, we write positive negative. You don't go back like, oh, I forgot that. You just do it. And then you don't have to ever say, I forgot it. What's the square root on top of negative 35? Good for you. Yes, I root 35. And on bottom, last step. And what do we do, Sadie, when we move it across? Switch that sign. So 7 over 2 plus or minus I root 35 over 2. Done. Questions? All right.